Tonight on To The Point.
He is trying to play political games in the middle of an election season.
A legal battle over this November's voter ID measure. Why supporters are now suing the state. And what could change. Plus, retail theft in California. Tonight, public safety advocates pushing back against a bill that could help dismiss some people's charges. Washington pauses to honor late Senator Lindsey Graham.
He was the first person to make you laugh.
How his legacy will live on. And later, the new study offering a solution to help keep California's giant sequoias thriving. A legal battle is growing tonight as Prop 39 supporters claim State Attorney General Rob Bonta's revision of their ballot information is false and misleading. Good evening. Thank you for joining us on To The Point. I'm Alex Bell. Prop 39 calls for stricter voter ID measures, and it will be on the November ballot. ABC 10's Jeannie Nguyen has been following this story from the very beginning and joins us now with the latest update in this fight.
Well, Alex, supporters of Prop 39 say this is a bipartisan solution of voter ID, but that the title was changed by the Attorney General does not reflect the initiative accurately. Through a new lawsuit tonight, they're asking a judge to change it ahead of a tight deadline.
He is trying to play political games in the middle of an election season.
Republican Assemblymember David Tongipa is referring to Attorney General Rob Bonta. Prop 39 would require stricter voter identification. The original initiative said it would establish additional voter identification and citizenship verification requirements. On July 3rd, the language changed to prohibit citizens from voting unless they present government-issued identification. That change prompted the lawsuit.
He can rewrite it any which way he wants to, but when you frame it in a political framing, you have violated your constitutional abilities.
The lawsuit also claims the AG's office failed to give a true and impartial statement and likely to create prejudice against the ballot measure.
It has nothing to do with prohibiting citizens from voting. It's a security measure. And that's the part where, again, framing matters. And it talks about bans voter ID. There's no banning voter ID. It's simply adding a security measure.
A spokesperson for the AG's office says the lawsuit is being reviewed and they're confident the court will agree that their duty was faithfully executed. Last week, Bonta defended the wording during a press conference.
It is fully compliant. It meets our obligations. It is more helpful to voters. It is more accurate. It is more informative. It certainly is completely lawful.
Prop 39 is one of 9 voter-proposed initiatives, and the AG's office says all 9 were revised. Legislative expert Chris McCaley says it'll be difficult to prove partisanship drove the language change, adding the July 3rd revisions to Prop 39 were expected.
You would expect around the beginning of July, in this case July 3rd, for any modifications by the Attorney General to be made. And then, of course, as we know, July 21st to August 10th is the public examination period. So that's what we're currently in, where any member of the public, in fact, the law says that any voter may go to court to challenge any aspect of that ballot title and summary.
And the Secretary of State was also listed in this lawsuit. A spokesperson says there will be no comment on the pending litigation. The Secretary of State's office says ballot labels for statewide props are on public display through August 10th, and there would be no court-ordered changes after that. And Alex, ballots have to be mailed by October 5th.
All right, Jeannie, thank you. New tonight, the Senate has just confirmed a new director of intelligence, Jay Clayton. That was a 51-47 vote. Clayton was previously a U.S. attorney under President Donald Trump. It comes as another round of layoffs is hitting the nation's top intelligence office. The acting director of national intelligence said altogether about 30% of the agency's workforce has now been cut. Tonight, federal prosecutors might be dropping their case against California labor leader David Huerta. His arrest during an immigration raid last year sparked widespread protests in Los Angeles. Huerta is the California president of the SEIU. He was accused of interfering with federal agents during an immigration operation. The Justice Department says it will dismiss the case next month if Huerta continues to comply with the terms of his release. Huerta says the move proves that the case was baseless, but federal officials maintain that his arrest was justified. A temporary restraining order has been granted in one of California's lawsuits against the Trump administration. This time it is over mental health grants for schools. About 2 weeks ago, 15 states sued the Trump administration over millions of dollars in possible cuts. The grants are part of federal programs, that Congress expanded following the school shootings in Parkland, Florida, and Uvalde, Texas. The state attorney general's office says the funding helps schools recruit and train professionals and provide services to students. The U.S. Department of Education issues the grants, and an earlier attempt to end these grants had already been struck down. Tonight, California public safety advocates are pushing back against a bill that they say would undermine voter-approved Proposition 36. But the bill's supporters say that's just not true. ABC's 10 State Matters political reporter Jenny He brings us both sides tonight.
Very simply put, AB 2108 seeks to create a diversion option for some retail theft offenses. But because Prop 36 was designed to strengthen accountability, especially for repeat offenders, opponents say they worry the bill would undermine Prop 36.
Its practical effect is to weaken the repeat offender accountability that California's overwhelmingly voted to restore by allowing theft-related offenses to be dismissed through diversion.
A coalition of public safety advocates and law enforcement officials are sounding the alarm bells over Assembly Bill 2108. Bill author Assemblymember Dr. Lachey Sharp-Collins is hoping to create a diversion option for certain retail theft offenses, including shoplifting and vandalism. If the bill becomes law, anyone, not just first-time offenders, who has committed nonviolent, low-level retail theft could be granted diversion. Upon completion of treatment, the charges would be dismissed.
And while we have diversion programs for drugs and for mental health, we do not have the same for crimes that are done out of the necessity, which is led by poverty.
Sharp-Collins and supporters argue AB 2108 builds on the promises of Prop 36 to offer stronger consequences, but also more effective treatment. They say the bill would offer treatment as an option the first time around for retail theft offenses. Currently, under Prop 36, only those with 2 or more prior qualifying drug convictions get that treatment option.
It's an attempt to stop the cycle of crime early on, and to connect individuals with services and support that will help them kind of change directions so that individuals never get to the third offense.
Proposition 36 became law in 2024 after nearly 70% of California voters voted for it. To help address concerns over recurring smash and grab retail theft, Prop 36 was designed to increase penalties for some repeat theft and drug crimes while offering treatment for certain drug offenses.
AB 2108 limits the accountability that repeat theft offenders can face.
Opponents say they're also concerned about the costs and additional workload on prosecutors and judges. The El Dorado County District Attorney's Office estimates an additional $100 to $200 million statewide to implement AB 2108.
In other words, the accountability clock gets reset. Someone can repeatedly steal, repeatedly receive diversion, repeatedly have those cases dismissed.
But Assemblymember Sharp-Collins maintains the root of her bill is
deprivation of resources breeds desperation, and desperation breeds necessity. If these people end up caught in the retail theft due to poverty and necessity, are they less deserving of diversion opportunities and treatment than those experiencing addiction and mental health challenges?
And once the legislature returns from summer recess on Monday, the bill will be heard in the Senate Appropriations Committee, the final step before being voted on the Senate floor. It is already passed the Assembly. Jenny He, ABC 10.
Coming up, Washington pausing to honor late Senator Lindsey Graham, how his policy still lives on. And electric vehicle sales, what new numbers are revealing about the state of the industry.
And things are going to be getting much warmer. We've been near seasonal the last few days, but I've got a weather impact alert for heat beginning at the end of this week. Full look at the forecast after the break.
But first, another headlines tonight. The man accused of a string of murders in Stockton was back in court today ahead of a trial. Jurors are set to decide whether Wesley Brownlee is competent to stand trial. He's been indicted on 6 counts of murder and 1 count of attempted murder.
It is a lengthy trial, but we are obviously expecting this to possibly go longer. This trial is going to tie this court up until November.
Meanwhile, Brownlee's lawyers say their client had refused to speak to them and told the judge today that they continue to operate without communication. A third victim of this month's deadly boat accident in the San Francisco Bay has been identified. Carol Boysa from Sacramento County was the sister of another man who died. That man's wife still has not been found. A family friend also died when the boat capsized near Alcatraz after being hit by a wave. And Dr. Anthony Fauci will be back on Capitol Hill tomorrow. His appearance is part of an ongoing battle with Senator Rand Paul, who has previously tried to prosecute Fauci for his actions. The now retired 85-year-old Fauci was head of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases during the pandemic. Fauci's lawyers say Paul's allegations are baseless. We continue to follow breaking news tonight in Nevada County. A fire is burning near Highway 49 and Colby Road. This is just southwest of Lake of the Pines. Evacuation orders are in place around Sharon Jack Road. Again, evacuation orders in place around Sharon Jack Road, and an evacuation warning is in effect for a nearby zone. The Nevada County Sheriff's Office says that animals can be taken to the Nevada County Fairgrounds, and a temporary emergency point for people has been set up at the Grass Valley Royce Library. Many people in that area also without power tonight. We do have more information over at abc10.com. I do want to get things over to meteorologist Brendan Minchef, though. Brendan, I know we've seen a lot of fires, not just last week, but this week. Particularly, things are just hot and dry. That's really it.
Yeah, that's it. And it's not even that the air is super dry. Yeah, I mean, humidities are low, as they typically are this time of year, but the fuels themselves are just very dry. Seasonally so. This is what happens late July into August. We haven't had rain in several months, and it's just not going to get better until we get back into the rainy season, which is still likely at least a couple of months away. Temperatures this afternoon: 96 in Sacramento, 95 in Stockton, 94 in Modesto, 90 in Placerville, some low to mid 80s in the high country. A little warmer than normal, but not by a whole lot, by 3 or 4 degrees. Across the valley right now, still in those low to mid 90s, 70s and 80s in the high country. A little bit of an onshore wind, not much, just 10 miles per hour or so. And even in the vicinity of that fire up in Nevada County, winds are 5 miles per hour or less. So we really are not seeing a lot of wind out there this evening. 6 degrees warmer than 24 hours ago in Sacramento. It is 94 degrees, clear skies. It'll be clear through the evening. A somewhat slow cool down, but nonetheless, it is there. 80s by 8 p.m., some 70s by 10 o'clock, and we'll drop into the 60s after midnight. So it's going to be a mild morning on Wednesday. 60 in Sacramento, about 61 Vacaville, 59 in Fairfield, 59 in Stockton, 62 in Modesto, 50s and 60s in the foothills, and some 40s near Tahoe. Wednesday afternoon, getting warmer. We're going to be in those upper 90s across much of the valley, and then we'll see some areas starting to hit the triple digits as we work our way up into the Sacramento Valley. High pressure is moving off to the west a little bit as we get to the end of this week. This is going to bring us widespread triple digits as we head into the weekend, and those triple digits are even going to linger as we head through at least the first half of next week. So weather impact alert Friday to Tuesday, prolonged heat, practice heat safety, and just a heads up, if you're planning on going to the coast, we've got a beach hazards statement in effect through Saturday, and that's especially true through the Bay Area and down through Monterey Bay, where wave heights could be as high as about 10 feet for south-facing beaches, and that's all because of the tropical systems that we have well off to our south, pushing a lot of water up here, so just be mindful of that. Look, things are warming up. It is still summertime in Northern California. Alex.
All right, Brendan, thank you so much. Right after the break, the high-stakes meetings today over the Iran war and what it means for your gas prices, plus the funeral services continuing for late Senator Lindsey Graham, how he could be further honored this week.
He was the first person to make you laugh and one of the last people that you've really ever wanted to fight. These were the traits that made him into one of the great figures in Senate history.
President Trump speaking today, honoring late Republican Senator Lindsey Graham before he is laid to rest. Graham unexpectedly died earlier this month at the age of 71. He served in Congress for more than 3 decades. Today, his family, colleagues, and leaders from around the world gathered in a testament to his influence on foreign policy. ABC's Olivia Rubin reports from the National Cathedral tonight.
An emotional funeral today in the nation's capital for late Senator Lindsey Graham. World leaders gathering to pay respect to one of the most influential forces in Washington. President Trump making these remarks about a man he has said was like family.
He was a man who gave America the full measure of his good and mighty heart until that heart itself just gave out.
And the late senator's niece with this emotional tribute.
His world revolved around my mother, his family, and those he considered such.
Earlier, a ceremony held on Capitol Hill, where Graham served for more than 3 decades. His sister, Darlene, who will finish her brother's term as senator, visibly emotional, placing her hand on her brother's flag-draped casket. Vice President Vance saying this.
I remember Lindsey Graham as a man who loved people. And because he loved people, he was willing to reason with them.
Attending the funeral today, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, a testament to Graham's fierce support of the two leaders. Both also meeting with President Trump while in town, meetings the White House called, quote, positive and productive. Former Vice President Mike Pence also attending the funeral today, telling me today he is remembering a man he not only worked with, but considered a friend.
Lindsey Graham was a statesman. He was an American patriot. What I'll miss the most is my friend.
And a White House official confirming the U.S. Air Force will rename Joint Base Charleston in South Carolina after Graham. Another memorial service is set for tomorrow in the senator's home state of South Carolina. In Washington, Olivia Rubin, ABC News.
One of late Senator Graham's final pieces of foreign policy work was sanctioning Russia over its war in Ukraine. The bipartisan bill is now named after Graham, and it could be taken up in the Senate as soon as this week. We do have new details tonight following the Israeli prime minister's meeting with President Donald Trump. They met at the White House for the first time since they launched a joint war against Iran. The closed-door meeting lasted nearly an hour and a half. Tonight, the New York Times reports Netanyahu said the meeting was excellent, with an understanding of the shared goal to ensure that Iran will not have nuclear weapons. The White House called it positive and productive. All right, and your price points tonight. Oil prices are showing overall declines as the U.S. and Iran could restart ceasefire talks. The benchmark for prices is fluctuating around $80 a barrel Tuesday after topping $90 earlier this month. Iran appears to be pausing strikes for now, but the situation remains precarious. Traffic in the Strait of Hormuz is at a trickle, and an alternate oil route through the Red Sea is being threatened. And according to AAA, the average price for a gallon of gas in California is going to cost you about $5.65. That is 1 cent cheaper than yesterday, but remains higher than prices were about a week ago when it was $5.52. Tonight, new numbers show electric vehicle sales remain down, but it's not all bad news. So according to Cox Automotive, U.S. sales of new EVs fell 20% in the second quarter from a year ago. Part of the reason was a rush to buy EVs last year before that federal $7,500 tax credit expired. The Trump administration also scrapped penalties for automakers who violated emission rules, which had pushed automakers towards building more EVs. According to Cox Automotive, while sales were down last quarter, they still went up, and used EV sales just hit a record, which could help the industry figure out its supply and demand.
I think all those things really had manufacturers step back and say, okay, what makes sense? We need to be profitable. How should we shift our timeline? In addition, we're starting to see consumers buy traditional hybrids. How can we make our powertrain more flexible so that we can easily adjust to consumer demand?
Sales continue to rise in the rest of the world, including in China and Europe. Most other countries still have those EV incentives, and drivers there pay higher prices for gasoline or diesel. All eyes will be on the Federal Reserve tomorrow morning when they decide whether or not to change interest rates. This decision could impact everything from saving to borrowing for things like a car and home loans, as we know. President Trump has been calling for rates to be lowered, but analysts believe that rates could stay unchanged over inflation and higher energy prices. All right, right after the break, the new research suggesting what it will take to keep California's giant sequoias thriving for years to come. All right, before we go tonight, of course, our beautiful state is famous for its giant sequoias. And now a new study is finding that setting planned fires could actually save their lives even more. Researchers from UC Davis, the U.S. Geological Survey, and the National Park Service found prescribed burns in Kings Canyon and Sequoia National Parks helped spare nearly 2,000 giant sequoias during the devastating fires in 2020 and 2021. They believe that thousands of more trees could have survived with similar treatment.
And we looked at about 26,000 giant sequoias using a number of, Earth observation modeling techniques. And we found that trees that had been treated by a prescribed burn in the previous 10 years were nearly 4 times more likely to survive those wildfires than some sequoias that hadn't been treated in some cases over 100 years.
Another beautiful thing about these giant sequoias, they can live more than 3,000 years in higher elevations, and they've long depended on fire to help them reproduce and stay healthy. Researchers say that this study is a reminder that planned fires can be a big solution to keep California's giant sequoias thriving for many, many years to come. As always, thank you so much for watching, for always inviting us into your home. If you have something you think we should be looking into, please email our team at tothepoint@abc10.com. And don't forget, you can always download our free app to catch up on any stories that you might have missed. Have a great night. Stay safe, stay cool. I know it's warm out there, and I'll see you right back here tomorrow.